We have several great stories to share with you today about Tesla. So first, there have been more sightings of Tesla Model 3s in the wild with no side mirrors and unique camera setups. We first started seeing these appearing in May, but now we have more with 3 Model 3s seen at a local supercharger. Are these a setup for the upcoming Robotaxi vehicle? Also, it appears that Tesla is renegotiating its deal for its Gigafactory in Buffalo, New York. With Tesla's plan to locate a Dojo Supercomputer at the Buffalo's factory, the state is willing to sweeten the deal by slashing potential penalties. And in a new report, surprise, surprise, Tesla ranked first in J.D. Power's 2024 U.S. electric vehicle experience for public charging. Overall, both Tesla and non-Tesla owners find that charging their vehicles at Tesla Supercharger facilities is going to be the most satisfying. Finally, Polestar, which is majority owned by China's Geely, has announced they've started to build their Polestar 3 in South Carolina. This is a way for them to bypass the US tariffs on China-made cars. To help me figure all this out and tell you more, we got Brian White. He's got his YouTube channel called FutureAza. Thank you so much, Brian.
Boy, these topics are all handily in my wheelhouse, so I'm glad these are the ones I got today.
They are all handily in your wheelhouse. That is true. Basically every topic. You're pretty good about all of them, by the way. So we saw these in May. So I'll point out this article is in May, but then now we got new photos just yesterday. So first of all, in May, these Model 3s were spotted with no side mirrors and unique camera setup. So this guy took these photos. I mean, look at his gorgeous photo. He did it while he was driving, but you can see this camera set up here on the, looks a little bit different position. There's no side mirrors here. You can see that that's the camera here in the left, here in the back, and then here in the side. So that was in May, but now we have 3 Model 3s with this unique camera setup was spotted at a supercharger. So look, we're able to look at them more closely, including the front bumper camera. And the question we've all been asking, is this the upcoming Robotaxi? Robotaxi, this Darren was the one that took these photos. So very, very close up look. So this is where the normal camera setup is here, but then they moved it to here on this side. And it's a different angle also, it looks like, or a lot more wider. And you got this camera, instead of the ones on the B pillar here, which is where the current cameras are for the Model 3s, it's back over here. So you got to think about, what is the design of this Robotaxi? Why do they have this? By the way, why such a huge inset kind of scenario? Why is the camera so deep in there? Is it like a massive camera? What is it? And then in the front, it's right here in the front bumper. So, okay, we finally have a camera on the front bumper. Makes sense. People have been asking for it, but we got it. And then we've got one in the rear as well, back here, pointing downwards. Yeah. What's your thoughts on all this?
Great. So let's start with what it could and couldn't be. So could it be the new camera setup for the Model 3? No, clearly not. They're not going to put the cameras inside the passenger's glass. That's crazy. They wouldn't, if they're going to do a bumper camera on the 3, they wouldn't cut a hole in the bumper. They'd find a way to make it work with the existing layout. So it's definitely not for the Model 3. Well, could it be for the Model Y? No, because it's still, those back cameras are still too far back. You'd want it to fit within the current cuts of the car. This is clearly for a vehicle, a different vehicle. It looks to me like they are trying to mock up the exact placement of where those cameras will be. And I think whatever we see on 1010 is going to have that camera layout. You and I can drive just fine without a bumper camera, but I can see why a Robotaxi would feel the need to have one. Maybe it's there's something in front of the bumper. Is it a bag of trash? Is it a cat? I need to be able to see that. Not me, but the car needs to be able to see that, because you and I can make reasonable deductions. We can hop out and look if we need to. So this, to me, points in only one direction, and that is Robotaxi.
Yeah, I think it's exciting to see 3 of them at the superchargers, which means that they're charging, which means that they've been testing them out. We got 3 of them testing. Yeah, very likely it's a Robotaxi.
Exactly. You need more data to validate. One car can tell you if you're on the right path. And once you've determined the right path, the more you get out there to test and validate, the better it's going to do.
Very, very exciting. When you see the locations of these cameras, so I know you got the front, you got the rear, but the side camera it looks like it's higher up. It looks like it's in the rear. So I'm telling you, it looks like that it's going to be much more of a bigger car than a small compact cars.
To what I'm thinking is maybe you have a large single door and it is just behind it. Because a large, maybe a swooping up kind of door, like not quite like the Model X, but in somehow getting out of the way like that, not just swinging wide. And then that camera right behind it, as far forward as it can be based on what we have, what we understand a normal car shape to be. Yeah, it all the pieces fit as far as I can tell.
Okay. I'm still guessing that it could be like a minivan sliding doors instead of the Falcon wings. We'll see. I don't know. Okay. So we've got Elon Musk sharing this photo recently about the Tesla headquarters picture taken this morning. This is the Giga Texas. Yeah, I mean, it's just a gorgeous photo. But we got Brian White here. Brian knows a lot about Tesla Gigafactory. What are we looking at here? What are they building in the front here and the side here? What's going on?
Sure. So let's start in the bottom left where there's that big pile of dirt. That's probably nothing. It might be parking, but it's probably nothing. It's probably going to be a road and grass. Down in front of it, between the building and the pond where you see the glass there, there's there's the big channels there. What are those? Those big, are they outflow channels? Are they egress for people or products or goods? Unfortunately, I do know the answer, but it's behind a paywall. Joe Tegmeyer was able to confirm it just yesterday. Joe Tegmeyer told us on Patreon what it is. Okay. And I'll tell you, it wasn't what I thought it was. It's not the most, I mean, no answer is going to be dreadfully exciting, but it's, yeah. And then behind that glass is just where all the computers go, which I thought was a very strange choice. I thought you would want better climate control, but they've got all that mitigated. And then, of course, in the middle to the right, next to the building, just behind the building there is that's the cooling towers. They are massive. The amount of heat this unit can exchange is ridiculous. So that's going to be pretty neat to see it once it's in operation. And because this is a multi-use building, that heat exchanger doesn't have to just get rid of heat like you see with most data centers. It can redirect the heat to other parts of the building. You can use that to make it the world's largest octavalve to do all the heating and cooling of the entire facility. And not the entire facility, the furnaces for the gigacastings would still be just vented right there, but everything else.
So this rear section here that I'm pointing around, that's the largest supercompute, or one of the largest supercomputer data centers in the world, correct? This is it right here in Giga Texas?
Yes, when fully commissioned. It's going to start at something like 20% capacity and ramp up from there. But the power draw is going to be 500 kilowatts, which is small city sized.
Perfect. You'd know so much about this. You live and breathe every square inch of this. Thank you for doing that. So let's talk about Giga New York. That is supposed to have the Dojo Supercompute there. And so they've been negotiating with New York State about, incentives and jobs and so forth. And the news so far is that the New York State officials are prepared to slash penalties for Tesla in coming years. Even if they are not able to hire the workers that they initially thought that they were going to hire at the Giga New York plant, they're going to be able to cut the penalties so that they're renegotiating. On the company's current arrangement with the state, Tesla must employ 1,460 workers in Buffalo, 2,000 statewide, or else pay a $40 million fine. However, that deal expires this year. According to details of a draft agreement, which could run through 2034, they must employ 1,800 in Buffalo, 3,000 statewide. The current penalty will stay in place through 2029, but will drop to 10 million after that. So this is Giga New York, and this is but they've upped the rent. So they're just renegotiating according to the details of this draft agreement, which could run that. We just explained that. So as part of this response to a Freedom of Information request, they revealed that Tesla's going to locate their Dojo supercomputer there, $500 million project. They're going to pay rent $2 million annually through 2029, $5 million annually through 2034. They're going to hire 500 more employees if the state lawmakers allow it to open 10 direct-to-consumer car dealerships across the state.
So that's the exciting part is we're going to hire more workers in this state Oh, by the way, where do you want me to employ them? Because I'd
Mm-hmm.
like them to be in service centers and direct sales. So allow us to open 50 location or 10 locations, and we'll put 50 in each location.
Yeah.
That's very reasonable. The trick with opening a data center is a lot of small towns and cities have said, oh, wow, Google wants to put a location in our town. This is going to be so great. But they bring in construction workers from outside the area to build it, and then they fire it up and they bring in a handful of people from somewhere else in the country to run it, and then they find that they've got this huge facility and 5 employees. That's not really helping the tax base. And installing a $500 million supercomputer in New York doesn't mean that it's going to be spending those dollars there. Those dollars are spent in Taiwan, where the chips were made. They were spent in Fremont, where the chips were developed, or Los Angeles. I think the chip design, it's definitely in California so far. So they would need to, is that money really coming to us? So what this revised agreement says is it's not just about the dollars, it's about the head count. And Tesla's saying, look, we can't employ 1,500 people just in Buffalo. We need this to be statewide. This is a state incentive, so you can expand it to statewide, and let's make it work. Oh, and also I need direct sales.
I have another theory that I saw from one of the viewers or one of the comments. What about the bots? So we're talking 26, 2030. By that point, you might have some bots to replace the requirement for human. So they're saying maybe we won't be able to hit your 1,000, whatever number that we initially negotiated. So,
but a $41 million fine to a company that's doing billions a quarter in revenue is not going to kill them.
No, not an issue. All right, very interesting. So here we've got another report, this time from JD Power's 2024 U.S. Electric Vehicle Experience Public Charging Study. What do consumers really enjoy? The experience of public charging, electric vehicle charging, superchargers. Tesla ranked first. I mean, it's not a surprise. Tesla's superchargers are just a joy to go to. The overall customer satisfaction index ranking on a 1,000-point scale, superchargers is 731. The segment average was 664, because if you include charge point experience, 627. 566 for EVgo, 559 for Electrify America. I mean, I really disliked. I went to a mall. I had to park, and I decided, okay, let's go park in the EV charging spots because it was all booked. You have to download the app, which luckily I did already. You have to sign up. You have to lots of steps. It took me at least 5 to 10 minutes to try to figure things out, set it up, and plug it in, and you have to have the right plugging. So it was not satisfying. But of course, that's because I don't have a non-Tesla, right? Maybe theirs is easier once you've set it up once. But
so I can address this. In Europe, everyone uses the same plug. Any car can charge at any charger. And I said to Jan from Tesla Fix, who I was driving around with that week, how convenient that must be for you. You can just go anywhere. And he said, yeah, but I really wish there was a Tesla Supercharger in my town because those just work and they're less expensive. I said, right, but they all just work. He goes, yeah, but you need 50 apps. Not 50, of course. You need probably 5 apps. And there are super apps that cover all of them, but they charge a little more because they've got their own network to manage. And it's ridiculous. And so we went to, I don't remember, a charge point or something, and plugged in, and he could not get it to charge. He couldn't get it to charge. And it turned out the charger was working just fine. They had changed something on their app, and he had to redo his account somehow. And he's like, I use this every week. Why did they change it? It's just such a nightmare. So even when the chargers work, the billing can be a hassle. The handshake to get it started can take too long. It's just ridiculous.
Okay, so this is what JD Power said. Overall, both Tesla and non-Tesla owners find charging their vehicles at Tesla Supercharger facilities is the most satisfying. And non-Tesla owners, like those with EVs from Ford or Rivian, who now have access to the Supercharger network, appreciate the ability to charge at the broad network of Tesla chargers that was previously unavailable to them. Alex posted this. Tesla Supercharger ranks first in 2024 EV charging survey. Elon replied saying, drive long distance anywhere in America. There you go.
And that's it. That really is it. Does it work or does it not? Now, not every route is covered. I went and did autocross racing for the first time last weekend
I saw that
out
photo.
in Packwood, Washington. And Packwood is probably 60, 70 miles from the nearest charger. So if you're not going to juice up at the hotel, which we did, it's going to be a stressful amount of range anxiety to get all the way out to Packwood, race, and get all the way back. So yeah, fortunately we were able to book a hotel that had what Scott called and said, hey, by the way, you do have EV charging, right? And she goes, well, we have an RV hookup, but we don't do RVs anymore. So yes, we have a plug. You better got your adapter though. And he had an adapter, so we use the mobile charging. But yeah, that is a route that you would be, if you lived in Packwood and you did not own your own property where you could charge at home, you're not going to buy a Tesla. We're getting there. We're getting there.
All right. Let's talk Polestar. So Polestar, now is a Swedish electric vehicle. Are they Swedish? Because I thought that they're owned by Geely.
The design is still done in Sweden. So they do have a more Swedish feel than a Chinese feel inside. And their testing grounds are in Sweden. You can book a adventure to go out to their proving grounds and drive some vehicles out on the ice. So it still has Swedish connections, even though the manufacturing is done in China and now the US.
So it's Volvo, right? Geely bought Volvo?
Correct.
And what is Polestar? Brand new electric vehicle? Was it based on Volvo or not?
No, I don't. I really don't think it was based on anything. It's they do have they've had non-electric vehicles. The Polestar 1 was a hybrid. The Polestar 2 was pure electric. But starting with the Polestar 4, it is electric from day one, which is what they've been kind of waiting on.
Okay. So let's take a look at this report here. So Polestar has moved one step further in avoiding major tariffs imposed on Chinese-made cars when the automaker said it began production of its Polestar 3 SUV in the US. So this is the report.
So this is neat because Polestar was out ahead of this. They didn't know that the increase in tariff from 28 to 100% was coming, but they'd already planned to build and operate a factory, which is why so quickly after the announcement, they're already in production. And what they did, because they knew the U.S. allows you to do drawbacks on import-export tariffs. So they moved the entire Polestar 3 facility, all production, to the U.S. The U.S. will be the export hub for Polestar 3, and for every unit they export, they can import one. So that means that they can make the Polestar 4 in China and import it tax-free because they've got those offsets.
Let's take a look at the news, right? So they've has been manufacturing vehicles in China and exporting to overseas markets. But the Polestar 3 was being made and is now being made in Volvo's US plant in South Carolina. And it's going to be sold to customers in US and Europe. And if you look at the bulk of volume that will produce of Polestar 3, the majority of that volume will be here coming out of South Carolina. And if you make it in South Carolina, you can then sell it in the US we can bypass those tariffs on Chinese-made cars. The production of the plant is expected to reach full volume in 2 months. They didn't talk about the capacity at the facility. And it's going to start being delivered to us customers next month. So they sold 3,555 Polestar 2 sedans, its first battery-powered car in the US during the first half of the year. So tiny little numbers, but they've set up. Yeah.
And they've got deep enough pockets that they can do this, that they can weather these temporary storms while they're ramping. They're good cars. I have looked at them extensively. I haven't driven them yet. I was going to do that last week, but my schedule got crazy. But I did have a chance to talk at length with Gary Exner, who was the former president of the Oregon Electric Vehicle Association and now a 3-year employee at Polestar. And you can, in Oregon, you can do test drives, and that's something I'm scheduling. But they're good. They're solid. They feel a little expensive, but I haven't driven them yet to have a concrete opinion on that. But this is what China wants to do. They want to give you a car that doesn't make you think China is value. Is bargain, is discount junk. These are good cars. So we'll see how that goes. And the Polestar 4, there is one on display in the Portland showroom. They will be selling those, I think, by the end of the year.
Something a few people know about you is you actually lived in China. You also know a lot about the Chinese auto market. What's your expectation of which Chinese vehicles makers will actually make their way to create a factory in either Mexico or the US?
Okay. Wow. Well, I mean, the first answer is Volvo. They've already got one. But in terms of building a factory in Mexico, I'd say BYD's proclamation that they're not looking at it is political. I believe BYD is absolutely looking at Mexico, and they may just have other people looking for them, but I believe BYD will be the first mass volume producer of electric vehicles in North America from China. And then I believe, my guess would be like Li or Zeekr or Geely, because they've all got the money. Li least so, and I'm not sure how much demand there is for a luxury Chinese EV in North America, but I don't think that would stop them. So I think it would be the brands that people who are regulars of the channel would recognize would be the most likely, because even though there are still over 100 EV brands in China, those 90 that you haven't heard of are the least likely candidates. And I would say of the most known candidates, the government-owned ones like GAIC and SAIC are probably the least likely just for political reasons. Having a foreign government-owned factory in your country may not be something that they're ready to do just yet.
Thank you so much, Brian. Your knowledge is awesome. I love having you join me every Wednesday, but I wanted to show people your website, gorgeous website, FutureAza. There's you looking somewhere in the future, I guess. But I wanted to point out the kind of shows you do. Obviously, you really focus on things Buzz Insider wrong about.
Yeah, Biz Insider, Business Insider.
Yes, you love to make fun of those guys. Can't track the Model 3 performance. You've got this Cyber is a real truck. Even the media agrees now. Demand levers for data. But anyways, I wanted to point out this particular photo because we were talking about it earlier. Is this real? Did they Photoshop your face in here? Did you really have this helmet on?
That's a thumbnail from the video. That's a picture. It's a screen capture from the video. Yeah.
I thought it was faked out that you put your phone on. You actually wore a helmet. You actually went on I
drove it.
Track?
Oh yeah. Well, it's autocross, so it's cones in what's essentially a very large parking lot. It's the old staging yard for an old mill that's been decommissioned, and you get going pretty quick on these little cone courses, and it's a lot of fun. And of course, I had a loaner helmet, which might have benefited from being a half size bigger.
I thought your head was pretty. I'm just kidding. But yeah, Brian travels quite a bit. He does these activities, and that's the special thing about you. You go and you got so much. You've been traveling everywhere, and you're going to keep traveling the next several months here and next year too. Thank you so much, Brian. Check out his channel, FutureAza, and that was fun. Appreciate your knowledge.
Thank you, Herbert.
Bye-bye. I've created a website that is the most comprehensive resource for the Tesla investor. Please check it out. Simply go to my website at herbertong.com.